Ooh, we already got 8 people jumped on. That's super cool, man. Um, Good evening, guys. Welcome back to the channel. Just trying to do, I think I've been doing like jumping on live maybe once a month or so, depending on how I'm able to line things up. I'm super excited about tonight. Yeah, I got 2 friends that are jumping on. You guys know who they are. Absolute legends in the SoCal fishing world. Not just the surf, but in everything they do. So, hi, David Garland. Thanks for jumping on. And I know for sure, maybe a lot of people knowing Glenn and Graham, we're going to be jumping on, are kind of joining the channel for the first time. If it's your first time on the channel, want to welcome you guys. Thank you so much for joining. If you like my content or you like this, consider liking the video and giving it a quick subscribe. Hey, Samuel Balderas, thank you so much, man, for jumping on. My man. Josh Bailey, Big Lout Baits. I don't know if you guys saw me post. Caught some perch with baits that he just started pouring. So Josh, Samuel, always a pleasure to see you guys. Thank you so much for your guys' ongoing support. Means so much to me. We're going to go ahead and jump right into it. I want to introduce the guests for the evening, and I'm super honored. I'm new to the fishing world. I've been fishing hard. I mean, I've been fishing my whole life, but as a kid, but honestly, I kind of put it away for a while, and I didn't start going hard, like dedicated, committed for maybe until 5 years ago. So I've been going hard for about 5 years. So I'm still a baby in this world. These 2 gentlemen are legends. They've been doing it. They put their time on the water. They've been fishing these waters, not just the surf, but the bays, the open ocean, the lakes, you name it. They've done it all. And they are also guides. How do you say it? They guide, professional guides. And so I left their link. I've left information in the description below. So if you guys are interested in a guided trip, hit them up. Only if you're serious, though, man. Don't waste their time, okay? Ben Kustura, hey, what's up? It's the king of the surf, Ben Kustura, man. Woo! And so he's the true king of the surf, guys. And so thanks, Ben. Thanks for jumping on. Lost Horizon Fishing, Dan. Hey, such an honor to have you here too, man. I got to fish together one time on the kayak in the Huntington Harbor. Such a good person. So today on the live, we got Glenn Ueda and we got Graham Day. Oh my goodness, these guys are the best at what they do, and so I just wanted to introduce them. First time, I've only met Glenn randomly. It was just running into each other on the sand. So when I first started fishing, maybe it was probably 2 years into it, and I was really grinding the sand because all the old timers and the people that I was learning from that were mentoring me, they would all say nothing beats time on the water. And so I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't asking anyone where to fish or anything like that. And so I just said, okay. So I'd walk all the beaches as much as I could, not knowing what I was doing, just trying to catch fish. And so about 3 years ago, I ran into a gentleman. I didn't even know who he was. And the reason why I know that it was Glenn now is I remember that day. There was some swirling water, and he's like, oh yeah, there's a Corbina right there. And I remember just staring into that little pool and not seeing anything. I had my polarized glasses on, and he was describing their behavior, how it was moving. And he's like, yeah, that one's not going to bite. He's doing angry circles. And I didn't even see him. And then he walked away, and I kept looking, and then I eventually saw him after like 5 minutes of like squinting my eyes. So, but I run into Glenn several times over the past several years, just doing my thing out there. So Glenn, an absolute legend and a great example for our fishery. Thank you so much for joining. Let's go ahead and bring him in. How do I do this? There's Glenn. And I'm going to unmute you here in a second. And then we got Graham, man. Graham's another friend. I actually ironically met him on the same stretch of sand that I ran into Glenn. And just positive vibes from the moment we met, and we've just stayed in touch. And over this past, I'd say 6 months, I think we've been hanging out a lot, man. Graham's the one that got me into the scout, and coincidentally, Graham actually designed this hat. And he's been nice enough to take me out. Just a silly guy that doesn't know anything about boating and has put up with my nonsense and just been so kind to me. So thank you so much for both of you for joining in. And I'm going to go ahead and unmute, and I'll mute and unmute you guys so that we don't echo each other. And I'm also going to be trying to respond to comments in here. Man, we got a lot of people chiming in already. We got 24 people in the first 5 minutes. So that's awesome. Let's see if we can get to 50 and cross our fingers. Maybe we can get 100 people on here to just have a good time tonight. But let's just start off with, we'll start off with Glenn. Glenn, I'll solo screen you. And if you want to just introduce yourself and just share about your experience as a fisherman in Southern California waters, what you love to do, what you're best at, just everything, just the course of your life. You've done it all. So just go ahead and toot your horn and let's get to know you a little bit.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I appreciate you having me on, Benji, and always good to see Graham. Graham's a good bud. But hey, I've been fishing since I was about 5 years old. And, the last 8-10 years, I've really concentrated on fly fishing for these corbina, which is pretty cool because my past is in surf fishing. Grew up in the Gardena area, and we always fixed cars on Saturday to make ends meet. But come Sunday, Dad always took us down to the sand and we did some surf fishing. It was relatively inexpensive. It was something we could afford as a family. So we'd fish everywhere from San Onofre for spot fin all the way up to Lompoc for perch, and all the way up to Morro Bay for stripers. And so, my background is in surf fishing, and it's one of the purest forms of fishing, which is why I really like it. But it's fun coming back. I had a little bit of a distraction, so to speak, when I got heavily into long range fishing. I did that for about 30 years, and it's actually what I thought I was going to do now in retirement. But after you yank on those 100 to 200 pound tuna for 30 years, it honestly gets a little bit old, even though I'm going to go try it again tomorrow for some bluefin. But but in any case, I enjoy fly fishing mostly now. And even though corbina is my passion, I do enjoy the international travel as well. So everywhere from, I've gone to Argentina for golden dorado, to the Brazil rainforest for peacock bass, Bahamas, Belize, Christmas Island, as well as fishing some domestic locations. So I'm really blessed. I'm really fortunate to be able to have gone to so many different places and still have a number of them I'd like to still go to. So, but again, thanks for having me on, and look forward to answering a few questions here.
Absolutely, guys. And so thanks so much, Glenn. And just FYI, we will be doing Q&A. I already see some comments jumping in into the chat window. Glenn and Graham, I don't know if you guys can see that chat window. So feel free, if you are able to see it, to jump on in the chat to just answer questions that way. And if not, I'll just call out the questions through the live, and then you guys can just take turns doing that. And for those of you guys that don't know Glenn, for some reason, you don't know who Glenn is a beast. And as he mentioned, specializing in corbina, sight fishing corbina from the surf, which is my favorite thing to do. And I'm just trying to learn so much, and so guys like Glenn are guys that I always looked up to. Glenn, I know we don't talk personally, but trust me, I look up to you, man. And just trying to learn, and just, you're a real ambassador for the sport. So, but probably one of the best, if not the best, corbina fisherman in the surf. So just an honor to have you here. And now Graham, my good friend Graham, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. Graham is a man of many, many talents. And so just wanted to give you the floor, Graham. Thanks so much for jumping on, setting this up actually. And doing that. So let us know who you are, for those that don't know who you are, and let us get to know you.
Well, thank you, Benji. Thanks for having me on. And, I'm honored to be on with you and Glenn. I think the work that you're doing here with Benji Kim Fishing is great. And you know, as you have both mentioned, you know, Glenn and I are fly fishing enthusiasts. And the thing I thought that was so wonderful about this, and the one thing that I'm encouraging for my position more and more, is to get conventional anglers and anglers on the fly together, because we both share the same passion. We're extremely passionate about this. I myself, I've grown up in Southern California, and I got the surf fishing bug when I was going into the fourth grade. My parents we moved from the South Bay, which ironically enough, that's where Glenn was from. In fact, I was probably a little kid walking, you know, in the aisles of the tackle shop that he worked at there in Gardena for a while. You know, as him being my senior and still my mentor. But yeah, I fell in love with surf fishing when my parents bought the house in Westminster on the corner of Seal Beach and Huntington Beach back when I was going into the fourth grade. Spent a lot of time on the beach growing up as an angler and also as a surfer. So I've been able to see it both ways. You know, as a conventional angler, you know, growing up, the first job I ever had was at a tackle shop, fixing reels and selling things. I went on to work on boats, just passionate about doing everything in California. My father being a diehard fisherman, we traveled throughout the country in Canada, you know, fishing wherever we could during the summers. And, you know, when I became a young adult, you know, I took it in my own direction. And I'd say for the last 5 years, you know, I fished almost exclusively on the fly, taking a similar path to Glenn, you know, guiding on the beaches in California, fishing as many days there as I can, doing a lot of blue water fishing on the fly, and traveling the United States, Mexico, and Canada after, you know, beautiful trophy fish. One of my favorite things in the world to do these days is to wade warm water, saltwater flats. You know, for the cousins of Corbina, you know, bonefish, and also permit and jacks and things like that. And I love to share information, and I love the sport of fishing in general, and I love to share my experience with people who want to get into it. So yeah, thanks a lot for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Let me unmute myself. Thanks, Graham, man. Stoked to have you on here. Nothing but good vibes. Hey, let's jump into some content. Yeah. Let's just jump into the meat and potatoes. Time's gonna fly by. We're 12 minutes into this thing. We're gonna cut out of here by 8 p.m. at the latest. So let's talk about surf fishing, man. Whether you're on the fly or on the conventional gear, we're all looking for structure. And yeah, sight fishing Corbina is very unique, and you know, it's a little bit more specific in terms of what you're looking for to see those beans coming up high. But at the same time, if you're walking the sand, we're all seeing the same things, and we're all looking for the same kind of stuff. So Glenn and Graham, do you guys want to jump in with talking about structure, how to find structure? Obviously, time on the water is the best teacher. But, you know, what are some things that you're looking for? What condition wise, you know, and maybe, and I know Graham wants to talk about this, is current conditions, what the water been like this season, you know? And so we'll start off with Glenn. If you want to talk about that, like, how do you find the fish when you walk to the sand? And so a lot of my subscribers, I think they're all here because they want to learn, man. Like they just don't know where to start, and they're looking for wherever, and they jump on YouTube, you know? And so they want to know what to look for, how to find structure. What do you look for to have a successful day? And then Graham will go to you next. So Glenn and then Graham, yeah. There we go.
Yeah. For sure. No, you nailed it. I mean, structure is key to what we do as Corbina fishermen when we sight fish them. We don't have the benefit of using scent to be able to draw the fish to us. So if I had to break it down to three of the most simple things that I look for, is I look for, I'm setting somebody up, and a lot of my guide trips are based on this. I'm looking for a nice low tide, a minus tide typically, early in the morning, and that's usually going to happen on your full or your new moons, because that's when you're going to get the most gravitational pull, which is going to create the steeper tides. Arrive at the beach early enough where you can assess and the beach contours, the structure. I'm looking for holes, troughs, rips, any kind of cavity in an otherwise pretty desolate and flat beach, but it requires a lot of walking. I mean, Benji, you nailed it. It's about walk, 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 walk. And I was determined in the same way you were, and that I didn't reach out and talk to all the old timers that, the Corbina Patrol guys and all this. Yeah, I read on the internet a few things, but to me, the journey is as much part of the fishing as anything. I want to enjoy and have the satisfaction of discovery. So I have literally walked virtually every mile from San Diego County, Imperial Beach, all the way up to Carpinteria and even up to Santa Barbara down below the college there. But again, people reach out all the time and say, Glenn, what beach are you on? And I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to deny you the opportunity of figuring it out and the satisfaction of learning. And again, it's about conditions. It's not always about the beach. Yeah, there's certain beaches that historically produce Corbina or perch or stripers or halibut. But again, it's a matter of finding the conditions. So you find that structure, and then within that structure, I'm looking for crab beds. So you're looking for a spot within a spot. So there might be a trough at a particular beach, and it might be 100 yards long. Well, not all of that trough is going to be fishable. Yeah, you might see some fish, but where are those fish going to be most willing to bite? And I'm looking for those locations. I'm looking for the little hot spot within that large structure. So I'm looking for crab beds. So learn how to identify what those crabs look like as they emerge from the sand to meet that incoming tide. And then also just a quick toe check. If the water is too cold, they may not be there, or or the other way to look at it is try and find the warmest piece of water along that stretch of coastline. It's not always a big factor because I was just going through and checking my logs. I happen to hit 300 Corbina this year, and right now 24 for the season, which is a pretty good start. And what's interesting is last year at this very same time, the water was 62. And I don't know, we've been complaining the whole time about, man, the water, it hasn't hit 65, or some people might say it's got to be 70. That's the nice magic temperature. No, if you got the food there, you got the structure there, there's a good opportunity. There's going to be some fish there. So temperature can kind of go either way. I'm a little bit on the wall about it being the key, but it can be at times. But yeah, those are kind of the three things. So structure, looking for a food source, gives them a reason to be there in the first place and feed, and then water temperature.
You guys taking notes? Dude, this is so good. Gold, man. So good. I'm going to unmute Graham. And Graham, I want you to riff off of some of the stuff that Glenn talked about. And I would love for you to kind of unpack it a little further. He talked about conditions, right? He talked about some of these things. Could you kind of get a little bit, and I know Glenn could do this too, but I want you to jump on, can you talk about what, if you don't mind, just talk about the things that you're willing to talk about. How do you determine what the conditions might be the night before you go on a fish? What are some tools that you have that you utilize to look at that, to kind of get your game plan together? So say that I'm going out tomorrow morning. I am, right? But say that's tonight. We got 40 people on, and there's 40 people that want to get their gear together to go fishing tomorrow. What tools are you going to utilize to determine what you think the conditions might be? And if you can dive into that a little bit, and also you can kind of, let's segue that into what the conditions have been like this year, and go ahead and take the floor.
Great. Well, thanks, Benji. And yeah, that's a really interesting thing to look at. I'll tell you, the number one tool that I use is it's an app called Surfline. That has so much information right there talking about, when to go. If you've got the paid subscription, it goes out, I want to say like 14 days. It's got your tides right there, so you can see when the negative tides are. You can see when the wind forecasts are. You can see what the water temperatures are. And yeah, it was really interesting too, also to hear Glenn talk about that in terms of, sometimes I'm more of a believer that the water temp does make a difference. However, he just blew my mind when he said this time last year the water was 62, because in my opinion, in terms of the current conditions and from what I've seen walking the miles of beaches so far. I've been up north, I've been down south, and I've really only started to see fish that were willing to play in the last few weeks, at least in numbers. I was seeing a lot of fish in the bays from my scout. I was seeing fish swimming in and out of the channel, but not necessarily swimming up into that structure, that golden structure we're talking about. The other thing that I found interesting about this season, and this changes every season, and this also has to do with me deciding where I'm going to fish. And again, going into doing some of the research and why walking, nothing beats walking the beach. As I mentioned, I'm also a surfer, so I'm that annoying guy that's out there getting caught up in your lines. But I swear I'm very nice about it, and I never bitch because I like to do what you do too. So, what I do look for is I look at the slope and the angle of the beach too. One of my favorite places to fish, just because it's convenient and close, is one of the spots I met Benji at. And although it's flatter this year, if you move up the coast a couple miles, you'll notice that the angle of the beach, the slope going down to the water, is extremely deep, which means there is structure, but it's not necessarily the kind that you're going to sight fish. If you got that deeper, that sharper angle going down to the water, sure, you'll have a trough, but there's not really a way for it to set up the way that we like, our backyard buns to set up on the flats, with a long angle and deep structure, channels moving in and out, and skinny water that you can watch. Because when it comes to sight fishing Corbina, the most rewarding thing is, and I encourage people that are getting into this, before they run down to the beach just for the first time and get frustrated, trying to make it happen, calling all their friends, leave the rod at home. Just go for a walk. Because the most rewarding thing, second most rewarding to catching a Corbina, is watching them. And when you see the skinny water come and that water, that ebbs suck out, and their backs are out of the water and they're going in, because they're going to come back in. So, just like Glenn said, you identify the structure, you identify the food, and then if you can get them on the right tide, I like those negative low tides too, just so I can see how everything's lined up. Get there as it's going out, or while it's, maybe just before it's hit the bottom of low. Take inventory of what you see while you're walking the beach. And then as the tide starts to come in, especially like the first foot of that incoming tide, and you'll watch magic happen on that beach. It's just really exciting. There's nothing like it. And the interesting thing, going back to current conditions, I've also found locally, we're all, Southern California. I've spent time up the coast. It might be cool down here, just like Glenn was saying. But if you go up the coast, you might find that the water temperatures have changed drastically. And the one thing that I found interesting about the season, as I shared with Glenn about a week and a half ago, is that water's 2 to 3 degrees warmer up north, and the food source is totally different as far as the numbers of crabs up there versus what I've seen down here. But I think all in all, it seems like it's finally started to turn on, which is exciting. I feel like as far as playing in the game, we're seems like a little bit behind, but maybe not. I don't know what you guys think.
Awesome, man. Thank you, Graham, for diving into that. And in terms of finding Corbina, and we'll talk. We're going to kind of digress into this in a little bit more. But in terms of finding, in my channel, I think probably the people who have gotten the maddest at me and some of the meanest comments I've ever gotten on my channel have been people who are mad at me because I won't tell them where. And like seriously, like so mean, like, oh my gosh, so mean. I've gotten a little thicker skin, but please don't look past the mirage of social media. You go on Glenn's Instagram, dude. I go on Glenn's Instagram and I start going crazy, because it's like every day you're just posting. You see these guys posting big fish after big fish, and that's just sharing the stoke, but one thing that discounts is the amount of work and time that guys like Glenn are putting in. This is more of a compliment to Glenn. I hope you understand this. Glenn is like, he's not someone that just walks up to the beach blindfolded and casts and just catches fish. I don't think He's someone that has clearly put in the time, and not just over a course of a year, but over 20, 30 years, has put in that time and accumulated that experience of miles on the sand, having walked. You guys want to know where to fish in Orange County, and I'm not even being sarcastic here. Newport Beach, yes. Huntington City Beach, yes. Huntington State Beach, yes. Bolsa Chica, yes. Seal Beach, yes. I have seen Corbina on every single one of those beaches. They're on every single one of those beaches. And I just named almost every Orange County beach on our coastline. Walk it, I know I did, for sure. And so that's just meant as an encouragement to you guys, that there's something so rewarding about putting in the time and looking for certain conditions on those stretches of sand. But Graham, beautiful breakdown. Glenn, you want to add to that in any way?
No, you really hit on something there. Become a student of the game. Getting back to my logs, I've logged every Corbina that I've caught since I started doing this kind of surf fishing since 2013. And just to show you how challenging it is and still is. I mean, I've only been at this for about 8 years now, but I've been able to adapt a lot of those early childhood lessons, catching barred perch on scroungers and, Carolina rigs. We were some of the first people to throw motor oil grubs and those kinds of things. And, we're talking back in the early 70s, and none of those lessons have been lost. But getting back to that first season, I made 36 trips for Corbina. No help, went by myself. I'm going to figure this thing out. It's just my hard-headed nature. And I caught 3. And my God, you would have think I won the lotto with 3 Corbina in 36 trips. But I learned a lot, and I've retained a lot, and I've logged a lot. I've always been, as an architect, really detail oriented. So I've got everything from when I caught the fish, what part of the tide, the water temperature, what the surf was like, what the sun was like, what the wind, I mean, it's all there. So you begin to develop a database that you can then build on, that's just going to inform your fishing into the future. The other thing that I would add is, at the end of the day, it's still fishing. Everyone thinks, well, my God, I'm going to dive into, whatever. Guys, it's like when I do my Corbina seminars, that little foam line you guys are fishing with your fly rods in a stream, when that thing goes to the ocean there, it's a current seam, it's a rip, it's the same thing. It's a conveyor belt for food. So don't disregard all of the other kinds of fishing you've done, whether it's bass or you're out there offshore fishing a current break where there's kelp patties. It's the same exact thing. You're looking for collection points where food's going to be. Take all of that together and let that influence or inform the kind of fishing you're doing currently, because it's all the same. It's all just fishing. I don't care if you're ripping a Lucky Craft for halibut. It's all, you might be fishing a slightly deeper tide, different time of year based on water temp, but it's all the same. Throwing swim baits for a largemouth, same thing. It's all about depth control or whatever. So yeah, let your other fishing kind of help out your Corbina fishing or your surf fishing. I think we're talking generally about surf fishing here, but it can be really, really helpful.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful stuff, Glenn. Thank you again. Also, just to jump in again, guys, Glenn and Graham, they both guide. And so, I think both of them are pretty almost booked up. But if you're interested in learning from these guys, one of the benefits, I think, of booking a guided session is just that one-on-one time to learn, just to spending time with guys that have done it a long, long time. So if you're interested, again, their information is in the description of this video below. You can check that out. Just a little plug. Here's one question that I'm going to jump into, guys. And I'm just riffing here. So Graham, if you want to jump in with something, just punch me over the screen and just let me know. But I got a question from Sir Blah Blah. And Sir Blah Blah is someone I met on the sand, like many of you that I have. His name's Pat. And I'm just so stoked that he's here. Graham, I think you'll find it. Pat is a surfer. I don't know if you know him, but he posts some really sick content on his Instagram. He's got that drone flying. Oh my gosh, it's so disgusting. But Sir Blah Blah asked a question. Big question for me. I'm outnumbered here, but better off to fly fish for beans or conventional? Both of you guys, if you guys have anything to add. I think it, yeah.
I think it really just depends on how you want to approach it, and I want to add something to what Glenn was just talking about a minute ago, using your experience when you're fly fishing or conventional fishing for these fish, especially if you're entering into the world of sight fishing. Presentation is everything, and an accurate cast, placing that bait, whether it's a lucky craft, whether you've got a sea rig on, or whether you're fishing a merkin, or or a bunny leech fly, trying to entice one of these things. It's about getting that bait into the zone. And unless you're doing the weight and bait thing, which I see plenty of guys catching Corbina doing that. If you want to sight fish them, presentation's everything. And I would say, one or the other. Just decide, how you want to do it. I know for me, the reason why I chose to do this on the fly, as I've spent most of my last 5 years doing that. That's pretty much all I've done. Let's be honest, is because I wanted to go back and revisit everything that I'd done on a conventional level. I enjoyed the challenge of doing it on the fly. It was a brand new skill set for me, and casting and presentation was extremely crucial. So I would say, do whatever you're up for. But I will also say, if you're inclined to conventional fishing, go at it. Just make sure that you get that bait in front of, without lining the fish or bombing it on its head. Get it an ample amount in front of the fish, maybe 2 or 3 fish lengths, and make sure that you're dragging that bait across both of his eyes. He's got to see it, and he's got to want to be a fish, and he's got to want to eat too. So and I would say, if you want to address this on the fly, I would also recommend, if you, unless you're a skilled fly caster, get your practice in. Be prepared to make a very clean 30 to 45 to maybe 50-foot cast to present to these fish, timed extremely well with no slack in your line. So if you're not prepared to do that yet, I would also recommend looking up some of the free resources that exist in Southern California. Almost every region, all the major cities have one or several fly clubs. As we're coming out of COVID, they give free casting instruction on the weekends, and all you have to do is show up and bring a fly rod. There's generally somebody extremely talented, or if you prefer the one-on-one thing, like you do if you hired Glenn or myself to guide you and help tune your eyes and your game in, get your cast tuned in so you can go there and have a fighting chance if you want to do this on the fly.
Good stuff. I keep muting. Hey, we got over 50 people jumped on, man. We were up to like 54 at one point. So thank you so much for you guys for tuning in. For you guys just jumping in right now, thank you so much. We got 2 legends that are talking about the surf fishing game and just fishing in Southern California, dropping big time knowledge. Jumping into another question here. Carl Sandman asks, 6 feet of straight 4-pound or build a tapered leader. Seen a lot of beans, but not finding many eaters. And I'll jump in and take that one real quick. Yeah, man. A lot of people tell me, like, a lot of questions I get because I fish conventional. I was always fishing 4-pound because I was always taught that they were line shy. Turns out, at least from what I've learned in recent years, they're not line shy. Graham is absolutely right. Presentation is everything. There's another legend down in San Diego that I've had the pleasure of running into recently, and I've kind of studied him from afar, of Steve Boswell. And he targets these guys on straight braid and a split shot. And he slays. As a matter of fact, he landed, I think, 9 over 2 days a couple days ago. It works. Straight braid. They're not line shy. 4-pound, 6-pound. Do what works for you, but don't do it because you think that they're afraid of light refraction. It's going to be, the amount of noise that you're making, and if you're using sand crabs, the real thing, we conventional guys cheat. If we're using sand crabs, dude, as much as it's the real thing, if that thing is spinning in 6 inches of water, they're not going to eat it. It's got to look natural. You got to place it in front of them, and they got to start digging in that sand and looking like a sand crab does. If you got it on a big old hook and you throw it out there and it's like kind of doing this in the current and stuff, and you're like, I don't understand. They look at it, but they swim away. It's the presentation, man. It's really getting that sand crab and making it look as natural as possible. And sometimes you do it perfect, and they still won't eat it. And my another mentor of mine, Randy Toji, he made a little funny post on social media one time. He was like, yeah, you try this, you try a quarter ounce, you try 3/4 ounce. And after I try all those things, if they don't eat it, the last thing I do is I throw rocks. at them, and this is another legend, who really has slayed a lot. So, Carl, hopefully that answers your question somewhat. Let's jump on to another question here. Sniper Gene, Eugene Fong, caught my first Corbina a few weeks ago on gulp sandworms. Is that really unusual? No, not unusual. But if you're sight fishing them, it'll be pretty hard to get them to eat the sandworm, in my experience. But not unusual. They'll eat the sandworm, especially if you're bait and waiting. Sir Blah Blah, just check Glenn Insta. He's stealthy on the fly. Wow. Tan Sen, here's a question for you from Tan Sen. Glenn, I'm going to unmute you now. Tan Sen asks, do you tie your own flies? If so, are they for sale?
Yes and no. Well, and I'm only being frank because I just don't have the time, but to just basically refill my boxes for trips. And so, yeah, I mean, it's something that it happens daily. But right now, that's just not part of my plan. But I appreciate the inquiry. And again, I mean, there's a lot of people that tie a lot of great flies out there. A lot of them are on Instagram. I mean, if I could throw out a couple of names, there's one guy in particular that does a remarkable job down in San Diego, Ryan Favorite. So I'd recommend you hit him up. Ryan does a great job with all kinds of flies, from bass flies, trout, as well as the surf scene flies. So that would be my recommend. He's the first person, aside from going to your local shop. And I don't know where this gentleman lives, but any of the shops this time of year are all prepared with a good selection. I mean, if you live up in LA, my God, hit the Fisherman's Spot. They're number one. You're down in Orange County, Marriott's gets the job done. And if you're in San Diego, go hit the boys down there at the Fly Stop. Go hit up my buddy Alex Caddy. He's good people.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's see. Now's a good time, guys. If you guys got any other questions regarding surf fishing, and it can be fly fishing related. Obviously, we got two pros here. If you have any fly fishing questions, this is the live broadcast on my channel to do it. It can be regular surf fishing, halibut, any gear questions that you guys have from the fly side and the conventional side. These guys can answer it both, and I can jump in with some of the stuff I know too. But now's the time to ask any questions you guys might have. We'll fill in as we wait for some of those questions to come in. Let's see. Graham had a really good idea for a discussion topic. So, I think we're going to give the mic over to Glenn again, is talking about the SoCal surf as a sporting resource and a food resource. And so just talk about your experience, Glenn, growing up, fishing with your dad, and kind of share about the way you did it then and the way you do it now, and just sharing your experience.
No, I appreciate the opportunity, Ben. That's such a good question, because being Japanese American and growing up in that community, and it was a social thing as well as a food source thing. And quite frankly, if it swam, we kept it. And it went in the bucket. We never kept over a limit, but it was one of those things where if my brother, dad, and I went, the heaviest bucket won. It was just the way it was. So we kept. And how the heck are you going to eat 30 barred perch or 30 spot fin? But I got to tell you, we kept more than our share. And what happens? You end up giving it away to your neighbors, and they give you a head of cabbage or a gallon of shoyu in return. And so, yeah. Now, talking about Corbina, so little research has been done on Corbina. I mean, aside from some Creel census work back in the early 80s, I've got a friend up there in Northern California, Ken Oda, who's with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. and he couldn't find anything other than just the basics. And so, knowing so little about our Corbina fishery, I think we owe it to ourselves to really do our best to. It's okay to, it's okay to keep fish, but let's not overdo a good thing, especially when we don't know as much about that fishery as we could. And I guess it's a good thing, because the only time studies are really done is when we're looking at them as a food source. So let's be careful, let's be vigilant, and let's make sure we're not greedy. As fly fishermen, I think we have an ethos of let everything go, whether it's a yellowtail. And now if I hang a tuna tomorrow, it's going in the cooler. That's no doubt. But yeah, let's just be careful. Let's err on the side of being safe, because yeah, I mean, we see our fair share of Corbina every summer, but honestly, nobody knows where they go. I mean, we have our theories, but they're all just theories. Some of us think they come from back bays. Some of us think they go out to deeper water. Who really knows? I don't. And I don't think any of the people I've spoken to really know for sure as well. And I've talked to a number of biologists. So again, that's just kind of me getting up on my soapbox. And, one of the things also that I'll add in is with me trying to share my passion for the surf is to really get people to enjoy this wonderful resource we have here in Southern California. And in doing so, invest in it, take care of it, nurture it, protect it, preserve our rights to be able to fish our coastline, because it's public water. And not to get real political, but we see that getting eroded literally on a daily basis, whether it's with MPAs, MLPAs, and so forth, homes being built too tightly together in Malibu, trying to keep us folks out from enjoying our public resource. Let's all get involved. Let's all love what it is we have and cherish it.
Great stuff, Glenn. Thank you for sharing your experience. And as a YouTuber, and I know I feel kind of dubious being a YouTuber with the old school. I think like one of my goals when I started my channel was to represent the sport well, and so I do catch and release on purpose. I've never kept a Corbina because I respect them too much. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I just respect them so much. And I can't imagine. And so that's not to say you have to release them. I think the point is just be respectful. And, if you are going to keep it with a free conscience, but, just be responsible for the fishery,
Absolutely.
One thing that I was thinking of is like, I love catching stock trout, because I can keep them with a free conscience. Like some lakes make you keep them. You can't release them.
Right.
And so when I want to keep some fish, I go trout fishing, man. And but those are stocked, and they'll get stocked again, and they'll get stocked again. But the ocean, there's no stocking schedule, man. Like like that's kind of how I look at it. Like if the ocean, if that place gets fished, heavy pressure. It's either going to get fished out or it's going to be a long time before it gets populated again. I think there's barred surf perch is a good example. Down in, we call Orange County perch. The Orange County perch are this big, and then you go up to Central Coast and they're like that big. But you hear stories that not that long ago, the barred surf perch fishery in Orange County was really good, and they were really big perch down here.
There were.
And now it's like, 1 out of 10 might be 10 inches, so.
Well, I was just going to add one thing really quick, Benji, and that is catch and release does work. I'll give you a quick example. It's actually kind of funny, but a buddy of mine, Alex Camacho, he lives down in San Juan, so he kind of works the beaches down in that zone there. And within a 2-week period, he and I both caught the same Corbina. And you go like, yeah, right. I mean, what did it have, like pink lipstick or no, it was blind in one of the eyes. And when was the last time you caught a blind Corbina? And it was the same length and everything. And I caught it after Alex had caught the thing,
Dude,
so
Glenn,
yeah.
can I share a story with you? Steve Boswell, he has a Corbina that he's caught 3 different times. And the reason he knows is because on the back, there's a chunk taken out of it. And he has pictures. He caught the same bean 3 times, and he sees that same bean tailing, at different times. It's crazy. So yeah, just piggybacking off your story. I was just
No, that's so it gets back to, it's a resource that we can enjoy time and time again, whether it's yourself or Graham or any other anglers. And the same for our calico bass. I do a lot of my nighttime calico bass fishing there in the harbor, and the same thing there. And I know for a fact one of the big trophy calico bass I got last year is a 6.5 pounder. Had the exact same markings, and even though they kind of look the same, there were some distinct markings on there that were highly unusual. So we know it works. So that's another good reason to help, preserve the fishery. I mean, I've got grandkids now. I would love nothing more than to be able to share this fishery that we have here on our coastline when they're able to fish with me. They're kind of young right now at 2, but won't be long. So yeah.
good stuff. Hey, we got 15 minutes left. Let's jump into a couple of questions for Glenn and Graham. So 15 minutes, guys. Thanks so much. We got 60 people tuned in. Super stoked, man. Thanks so much, guys, for jumping on. Let's see here. Let's get to these questions. I'll unmute both of you guys. We got Georgie De La Torre asks, hey, Glenn. Oh, this is for Glenn. Do you ever videotape yourself casting and hooking Corbina or just releasing them? Would love to see it.
No, I don't, but there's a number of videos that are out there, and there's one person in particular who I, more than any other Corbina fisherman, look up to, and that's John Nakano. John's got a great blog there. It's called Lords of Corbina, and I always give him a little jab there, and I always tell him when he gets one, praise the Lord, not to make light of it. But in any case, John loves to set up his GoPro and capture the full sequence of how it is he goes about fishing. And it's also great because he talks about structures. So like I said, more than anybody, he is fantastic at what he does, but he does a great job in documenting. So that would be my suggestion.
Good stuff. And then Off the Beaten Path, Steve Sauerman, best hot sauce in the world, man, or chili powder in the world, dude. But Off the Beaten Path, Steve Sauerman asks, as guides, do they teach beginners and do they rent fly gear during lessons?
Yeah.
Either of you.
One of my favorite things to do personally is take people out and do what I've had the opportunity to do so many times is spot fish and learn how to approach approach Corbina fishing and present to Corbina. And I think Glenn does as well, but like I provide the rods, reels, and flies on all my trips, and I think Glenn does too. There's guys that want to go out and use their own stuff, but if you don't have something, I'd say the best way to start, unless and I don't consider it a slight at all, is if you go and hire a guide, whether it's me, whether it's Glenn, or any of the guys that offer classes up and down the coast that do it, what it'll do is it'll fast track you on what to look for. You're still going to walk a lot. I was out with a client 2 weeks ago. We probably logged 20 miles in the 2 days we were out. But when it was all said and done, he was seeing things differently than he'd ever seen them before. He was approaching his fishing game different than he'd ever approached it before. He not only saw Corbina, but he got to feed a couple of them. And and he will never forget how to do that. So that's where the value of hiring a guide is. As I say, we love to teach. I mean, we're here today to share the information and the knowledge that we have, that we've gained, through walking, through making mistakes, through sharing with each other, the way that you and I, Benji, and you and I, Glenn, do on a regular basis. So yeah, it's beginners welcome, please. Like, more people on the journey.
Great stuff, Graham. Let me go ahead. Next question is for one of you guys. LQWD High asks taper leader or level leader and preferred leader length. Thanks. Either of you guys can jump in on that.
Yeah, I'll address that. You know what I've been using this season, and the previous years I had used just a straight 9-10 foot section of 10 pound, And this season, I committed to using a tapered leader just because it would help a little bit more in the wind, and then adding a small little tippet ring of about 2 to 3 millimeters at about the 8 foot mark, and then add on to that with some tippet. So, and that's just again for the more extreme conditions where you start to get that morning blow, or let's say you're fishing that afternoon tide, it just helps. But either way works. It's really kind of a preferential thing, but I think in my case, most of the time I'm using a 5 weight, and so not having as heavy a fly line to unroll that leader, having a tapered leader seems to be helping my casting.
Graham, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. The other thing is, if you're already a fly angler, yes, I agree with Glenn. In previous years, I would just fish like, straight 8 or straight 10 pound fluoro, maybe like a 6 foot to 8 foot section of it. But what I started doing is saving all of my 5X tapered leaders from trout that got too short. So I basically take, maybe 24 inches of that as a butt section, and then maybe and I'm creating a tapered leader for the same purpose as Glenn, so I can cut through the wind so the fly unfurls and lands on the water a little softer, because these things are super spooky. But yeah, save, if you already got leaders, you could even break it down, like, in a pinch you can do like maybe like some 20 pound 20 pound mono or fluoro, down to like, some 12 pound, and then down to some 8 or 6 pound. You could do that too. So, but yeah, I'm with Glenn. Previously, I was just going straight, but this season, last season and this season, I've been just kind of building some tapered leaders over recycled material that I have, and it seems to be making a difference. And my cast looks nicer. So
Good stuff. Min Nguyen, do you guys recommend avoiding rocky shores? I've lost plenty of bait due to snags, but if the fish are there, I'll keep trying. Answer to that is no, I don't recommend avoiding rocky shores. And yes, if the fish are there, I'll keep trying. That's how I answer it. We got 8 minutes. I'm trying to rush through here, but rocky places don't guarantee fish, but it can be very good, depending on what the water is doing there that day. Aaron Siebel, I've caught huge yellowfin croakers, surf perch, and leopard sharks in San Onofre, but never halibut. And I've tried everything from live bait, salted baits, Z-Man's drop shots, and etc. Help me get on Hallie. Sounds like you're doing the right thing, man. If you're using live bait, man, if you're using here's a secret to catching halibut. If you really want to catch a halibut from the surf, and you're able to use a little sabiki rig with some bread or shrimp at the pier and get some live smelt, put that in an aerator, and you go to the surf, you will catch a halibut. I don't even know if there's any skill involved. You will catch a halibut. So Aaron, if you're going with that, the live bait, it's working. The drop shot will work over there. Any stretch of sand, salted baits will work. I would go back to the very beginning of this video when we're talking about walking the sand and continue to put time on the water. I'm not saying that to be like, I don't know, to like yank your chain or anything. I really, really mean that. You put your time in and grind, it will work out. JSTN says, I don't know if Glenn know Whip It Good from SC Surf Fishing. He's a legend as well when it comes to fly fishing for Corbina. I don't know. That might be Glenn himself.
Yeah, that was back in the fly flicker days, and SC. That is John Nakano's username. Whip It Good. Yeah, same guy.
John's an
Yeah,
animal.
John's been around, and he's always been very helpful and all that with regard to teaching and so forth. He's done some seminars with some other people, and it's usually John that does all the talking because he knows a lot. I mean, the guy could write volumes. I mean, honestly, he's that experienced.
He
I did
has
want to,
his blog's on Tumblr too, by the way, if you guys are looking
yeah,
for it. And I think
yep,
there's like a weird spelling of it, but like just treasure trove of information. And John's living down in San Diego now. But if you ever
Mhm.
run into him on any of the beaches, be sure to go over and say hi and introduce yourself. He is a wealth of knowledge, and he takes this whole thing to. I've seen him do crazy stuff. He takes it to a whole nother level.
Yep.
Awesome, man. Well, the hour's flown by, man. We're at 55 minutes. So
Mhm.
I value number one, Glenn and Graham's time. Um, Again, I'm just so honored. Like, I'm tickled that I get to have Graham and Glenn on my YouTube channel. So thank you so much for making the time to jump on and just share your knowledge. And for those that are tuning in, always keep it positive, guys. One of the things that I love about fishing is every single one of us, hopefully when we're on the sand, it brings us back to when we're kids. And it's this point of just healthy therapy for the soul and the mind, and it's not about flexing. It's not about saying, oh, you're a bad fisherman, or I'm so much better of a fisherman than you. I see that so much on social media, like so much. Just keep it positive, guys, and just really let's make it a united place. We got to fight for that. And so
Yeah.
thank you guys so much. Any you got a couple minutes, Graham and Glenn, you got any last words before we say goodbye?
Well, first of all, thank you for doing what you do, for giving us a platform to kind of spread our love and passion for things, and so that's greatly appreciated. I did want to just throw out this one thing, and I know there's one species that most people think of when they think of fly fishing, and that's trout. And I would say, I mean, you probably have a better number on this, or Graham, but I would say 90% of the world is out there fly fishing for trout. And if you're thinking of
Absolutely.
taking a plunge into the world of surf, you can take that trusty 5 weight, which is the standard size trout fly rod, put a full sink line on it, go buy yourself a spool of 10-pound fluorocarbon, visit your local shop, get some sand crab flies, and you're in the Corbina game. It's that simple. You have no excuse to not give it a try. Yeah, it's
And it beats
challenging.
a 3.5 hour drive up to 395 if you want to get
Yeah,
your
exactly, right? Yep. And it's a great alternative, because there's, even though I think you shouldn't be fishing trout this time of year up there, when it gets too warm to fish your local lake up there, your rivers, because of hoot owl hours, get on down to the salmon. It's probably prime time for Corbina.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything for you, Graham?
I just want to thank you both for having me join you, and I want to give a special thanks to Glenn. He's a wealth of knowledge himself, and he gives quite a bit to the sport. He's given quite a bit to me personally. He's a very, very dear friend, and also thank you to you, Benji, for doing what you do and putting it out there and giving us this platform so we can talk about this, and bring us all together. We all love to catch fish. We all love that tug, and I think the more of us that are in the know on this, especially talking about some of the topics that we did tonight, like caring for our resource and being good stewards of our fisheries, like we're going to ensure that a lot of people get to enjoy this, and that's what's really exciting for me.
Absolutely. Well said, Graham. I feel the same way. Yeah, it's been a good time, guys. Let's do it again sometime.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
always down. Honored to have you guys. Everyone tuning in, thank you so much. Much love to you all. Graham, Glenn, have a great rest of the evening. Until next time, you guys
Yeah.
know, tight lines.
See you guys.
All right. Take care, guys.
Bye. See ya.